ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते
नमो भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम
ओम
नमो
नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो
ओम नमो
भगवते
भगवते
वासुदेवाय।
वासुदेवाय।
नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं
नारायणं
नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं
नमस्कृत्यं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
नरं
नरं चैव
चैव
नरोत्तमं
नरोत्तमं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं
देवीं
देवीं सरस्वती
सरस्वतीं
व्यासं
व्यासं
ततो जयमुदीरयेत्।
ततो जयम्
ततो
उदीरयेत्।
जयमुदीरयेत्।
नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं
नित्यं
भागवत
भागवत
सेवया
सेवया
भगवती उत्तमश्लोके
भगवते उत्तम
भगवती
श्लोके
उत्तमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी.
भक्तिर्भवति
भक्तिर्भवति
नैष्ठिकी।
नैष्ठिकी।
Reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, titled Conclusion, the Perfection of Renunciation. And today's verse is verse number 38. Visayandriya samyogat
विषयेन्द्रिय
विषयेन्द्रिय
संयोगात्
संयोगात्
yattat agre amrutopamam
यत्तत्
यत्तत्
अग्रे
अग्रे
अमृतोपमम्
अमृतोपमम्
pariname visamiva
परिणामे
परिणामे
विषमिव
विषमिव
tat sukham rajasam smritam.
तत्सुखं राजसं स्मृतम्।
राजसंस्मृतम्।
Visayandriya samyogat
विषयेन्द्रिय
विषयेन्द्रिय
संयोगात्
संयोगात्
yattat agre amrutopamam
यत्तत् अग्रे
यत्तत् अग्रे
अमृतोपमम्
अमृतोपमम्
pariname visamiva
परिणामे
परिणामे
विषमिव
विषमिव
tat sukham rajasam smritam.
तत्सुखं
तत्सुखं
राजसं स्मृतम्।
राजसंस्मृतम्।
Any Prabhuji would or Mataji would like to lead?
विषयेन्द्रिय संयोगात्
विषयेन्द्रिय
Visayandriya
विषयेन्द्रिय
samyoga
संयोगात्
यत्तत् अग्रे अमृतपमम्
यत्तत्
यत्तत्
अग्रे
अग्रे
अमृतोपमम्
अमृतोपमम्
amrutapamam
परिणामे विषम् इव
परिणामे
pariname
विषमिव
visamiva
तत्सुखं राजसंस्मृतम्
tat
तत्सुखं
sukham rajasam
राजसंस्मृतम्।
smritam.
विषयान्द्रिया संयोगादं
विषयेन्द्रिय
Visayandriya
विषयेन्द्रिय
samyoga
संयोगात्
संयोगात्
यत् तदग्रे अमृतोपमम्
यत्तत्
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 अग्रे
yattat
अग्रे
अग्रे
agre
अमृतोपमम्
amrutopamam
अमृतोपमम्
परिणामे विषम् एव
परिणामे
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 विषम् इव
विषमिव
visamiva
तत्सुखं राजसं स्मृतम्
tat
तत्सुखं
तत्सुखं
sukham
राजसं
rajasam
राजसंस्मृतम्।
स्मृतम्।
smritam.
विषयेन्द्रिय संयोगात्
विषयेन्द्रिय
Visayandriya
विषयेन्द्रिय संयोगात्
samyoga
संयोगात्
यत्तद् अग्रे अमृतोपमम्
यत्तत् अग्रे
यत्तत्
yattat
अग्रे
agre
अमृतपमम्
अमृतोपमम्
amrutopamam
परिणामे विषम् इव
परिणामे
pariname
विषमिव
visamiva
तत्सुखं राजसं स्मृतम्।
tat
तत्सुखं
sukham
तत्सुखं
rajasam
राजसंस्मृतम्
smritam.
राजसंस्मृतम्।
Thank you very much. Word by word meaning. Visaya, of the objects of the senses.
Vishaya
विषय
of
of
the
the
objects of
Objects
the
of the
senses
senses.
senses.
Indriya and the senses.
इन्द्रिय and
Indriya
Indriya
and
and the
the
senses
senses.
senses.
Samyogat,
संयोगात्
Samyoga.
Samyogat
from the combination.
from
From
the
the
from the
combination
combination.
combination.
Yat, which.
yet
Yat
which
Yet
which.
which
Tat, that.
Tat
that
that.
that
Agre, in the beginning.
Agre
agree
in the
in the
beginning.
beginning.
Amrita upamam,
Amrita
अमृतोपमम्
Amrita
upamam,
upamam.
just like nectar.
just
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 like
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 nectar
nectar.
nectar.
Pariname,
परिणामे
Parinam.
Parinam
at the end.
At the
at the
end.
end.
Visam eva,
Visam
विषमेव
Visam
eva.
eva
like poison.
like
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 poison
poison.
poison.
Tat, that.
तद्
Tat
that
That's
that.
that
Sukham, happiness.
सुखम
Sukham
sukham
happiness
happiness.
happiness.
Rajasam, in the mode of passion.
Rajasam
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 in
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 the
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 mode
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 of
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 passion.
passion
passion.
Pratam is considered.
Smritam is
Rajasam is
considered.
considered
Prabhuji?
with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. Sorry, I would like to read again. That happiness, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Prabhuji, now.
That happiness,
That happiness,
which is derived from
which is
which is
derived
derived from
contact of the senses
contact of the senses
with their objects,
with their objects,
and which appears
and
and
which
which
appear
appears
like nectar
like
like
nectar
at first,
at first,
but poison at the end,
but
but
poison at the
poison at
end
the end
is said to be
is
is
said to
said to
be
be
of the nature of passion.
of the nature
of
of
the
passion.
nature of passion.
Anyone would like to read the purport?
A young man and a young woman meet, and the senses drive the young man to see her, to touch her, and to have the sexual intercourse. In the beginning, this may be very pleasing to the senses, but at the end or after some time, it becomes just like poison. They are separated, or there is divorce. There is lamentation, there is sorrow, etc. Such happiness is always a mode of passion. Happiness derived from a combination of the senses and the sense objects is always a cause of distress and should be avoided by all means.
Thank you so much. Let's all chant together. अज्ञानातिमिरन्दस्य
Nasya Jnananjana
ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया
Shalakaya
चक्षुर्मिलितं येन
Chakshurunmilitam
तस्मै
Yena Tasmai
श्रीगुरवे
Shri
नमः
Gurave Namaha Chaitanya
श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं
Manobhishtam
स्थापितं येन
Stapitam Yena
भूतले
Bhutale
स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं
Yutapakamalam Sri
श्रीगुरो
Gurun
वैष्णवांश्च
Vaishnavancha Sri
श्रीरूपं
Rupam
साग्रजातं
Sagrajatam Sahagana
सगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं
Raghunathanvitam Tam
सजीवं
Sajivam
साद्वैतं
Sadvaitam
सावधूतं
Savadutam Parijana
परिजनसहितं
Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya
कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं
Devam Sri Radha Krishna
श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान्
Padam Sahagana
सहगणललिता
Lalita Sri
श्रीविशाखाविस्तांश्च
Vishakhan
हे
He
कृष्ण
Krishna
करुणा
Karuna
सिन्धु
Sindhu
दीनबन्धु
Dinabandhu
जगत्पते
Jagatpati
गोपेश
Gopesh
गोपिकान्त
Gopika Radha
राधाकान्त
Kanta
नमस्तुते
Namostute
तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि
Pranamami Hari
हरिप्रिये
Pri
वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा
Tarubhyascha Kripa
सिन्धुभैव च
Sindhubheva
पतितानां
Patitanam
पावनेभ्यो
Pavanebhyo
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो
Vaishnavebhyo
नमो
Namo Namaha
जय श्री कृष्ण
Shri Krishna
चैतन्य प्रभु
Chaitanya Prabhu
नित्यानंद
Nityananda
श्री
Shri
अद्वैत
Advaita
गदाधर शिवास
Gadadhar
आदि
Srivasa
गौर भक्त वृंद
Bhaktivinoda
हरे
Hare
कृष्ण कृष्ण
Krishna
कृष्ण
Krishna
हरे
Krishna Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare
नीलाचल निवासाय
Hare
नित्याय
Nityaya
परमात्मने
Paramatmane
बलभद्र
Balabhadra
सुभद्राभ्यां
Subhadrabhyam
जगन्नाथाय ते
Jagannadaya Te
नमः.
Namaha
So thank you so much for joining this wonderful sangha, and what a verse to ponder today. And last time Krishna spoke about happiness in the mode of goodness. How in the happiness, one which starts as visham, as poison, eventually is nectarian or amrita. But here in this verse, which is happiness in the mode of passion, Krishna has just twisted it, just the opposite. Vishayandriya samyoga, tat tad agre amrutam. Agre means in the beginning, it is like nectar, but pariname at the end, it is visam eva, that is poison. So we'll go into that, and then as just to summarize how Krishna is flowing this subject matter so beautifully. Krishna spoke about various knowledge aspects. First step in action in terms of goodness, passion, ignorance in 2021, 22. Then he went to karma. Then and he did goodness, passion, ignorance. Then karta, the doer, and he did exactly the three modes. Then buddhi, 30 to 32. So systematically, Krishna is going after Arjuna. So beautifully explaining understanding for action. Then dhriti, determination in mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. But now, in the final stretch, Krishna is speaking about happiness in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. 36 gave a overview. 37 was the last verse where Krishna spoke about happiness in the mode of goodness, and 38 today is happiness in the mode of passion. So Krishna um, says in Bhagavad Gita, just before this, in a very beautiful way, that yattat agre visam eva pariname amrutopamam. Last verse, he spoke about how yattat agre visam, in the beginning, it's visham, it's full of poison, but pariname amrutopamam. That means at the end, the effect is pleasing, amrutopamam, nectarian. So, in the mode of goodness, things starts in a very sad way. It starts in a very challenging way. It starts in a very poisonous way. But it ends in Amrutapamam. So anything you end up doing, if it starts difficult and you're going gradually to an element of nectarian expression or feeling, then you are truly in the mode of goodness because you are gradually emerging from a challenge to a success. And here, Krishna gives just the opposite. Krishna says, Agre Amrutapamam. Yattat Agre Amrutapam. Agre means ahead, in the beginning. How in the beginning it is very nice, very sweet, very nectarian. But Pariname Visam Eva. But at the end, it is all poisonous. So when it is just the opposite, he's using the same word, Agre, Amrutapamam, Visam, very common between 37 and 38. So when we study this, Krishna has just, 180-degree twisted the aspects wherein he says that anything in the beginning it is very sweet. All of a sudden you are experiencing something without any endeavor of yours. And gradually it gets to a position of poisonous, and that is happiness in the mode of passion. So always anything which starts with a passion, things are very attractive to us. It is very nectarian to us. And these nectarian expressions or experiences with us is because of Vishayandriya Samyoga. Because the sense and sense objects are coming in contact. Samyogat. Yoga means getting into the combination. And in this combination of the sense objects, we get a initial happiness. And Srila Prabhupada in his purport is beautifully giving the example of a young man and a young woman who are meeting, and it's very pleasing to the senses, and they are, you know, and how they are meeting? They're meeting with Vishayandriya Samyogat. It's basically sense and sense objects are interacting, and when this is interacting, everything looks rosy. But eventually fighting starts, then there is misunderstanding, and there is lamentation, and after that it leads to sorrow, or eventually it sometimes leads to divorce, which is so, and that in the beginning, a person who is conscious of the modes happening around him should recognize that if that is happening, which starts with a happiness without any endeavor being put in, and eventually it is going south, that was done with a mode of passion, and mode of the passion is very temporary, as you can see. And sometimes when you see, look at some of the areas of the verse which is very critical. Vishayandriya Samma Yoga. And when there is a contact between sense and subjects, some yoga, and this contact, what happens is, in the beginning it is Amrutapama, it's nectarian, but Pariname, it is poison. And Krishna has already talked in the 14th chapter, Rajastu Phalam Dukkham. The result of Rajaguna is Phala Dukkham. Any method of passion eventually leads to sadness. So Krishna has made it clear that the contact of sense and sense object will only get us to sadness. That's why we have to transcend between the senses and sense objects. So most gross sense enjoyments bind us in a bodily conception. We cannot switch on and off easily. And in this mentality of bodily conception, where the sense and such subjects are coming in contact with each other, there is eventual trouble in terms of birth, old age, disease, and death in any of these situations. And these type of pleasures has to be considered within the pursuit of dharma, and practice of dharma gives us the realization. So how we have to understand this happiness is something we have to ponder in this verse, which is so beautifully explained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when a camel is going in a desert, he only sees cactus. He is eventually has to quench his thirst and is very hungry. So what does he do? He immediately sees some fleshy green cactus in the past, in the far off place. So he runs, and when he takes the cactus, he sees it as an element of greenery, which by which he can clear his hunger. But once he gets into that, and he's hungry, so he constantly chews and chews and chews. And because the cactus surface is filled with thorn, from his tongue there is blood which keeps coming and coming and coming. And in this method of sense and sense object, of constantly immersed in the engulfment of the cactus, he forgets that he is chewing the thorns, and blood is constantly coming out and coming out and coming out, and he doesn't recognize it. And finally, he or she bleeds, and then he goes into a sense of. And the similar example in many animalistic tendencies are given as to how the animals are constantly being attracted. When a hunter tries to not kill but catch hold of a monkey, he would uh, he would try his best, but he will never be able to catch the monkey. But finally, he will he, attract him with some sound, and eventually he will get attracted to a place where there is bananas, and the monkey would put his head inside, and then he will not be able to take it out. You might have seen this in action. So anything which is enticing for us is actually a trap, and our acharyas have made it clear that any form of happiness with sense enjoyment in contact with sensory organs have to be avoided, because eventually it is a trap. Any form of intoxication you see, that's why no intoxication, no gambling, no meat eating, and no illicit sex are the four pillars of dharma, which is asked by all devotees and conscious persons to be regulated from. This is precisely because these four things will get us into a trap, whether it is meat eating, whether it is illicit sex, whether it is intoxication, or whether it is gambling. It will get us into a trap. And in the same trap, we keep on repeating and repeating and repeating. Exactly like the camel, he bleeds by eating cactus, but keeps on making an attempt on cactus again and again and again and again. And physiologically, our doctors or veterinary doctors will give the example that their tongue is designed so and so forth. But we are not talking about the design of the tongue. We're talking about the mentality, the consciousness of the camel. That even if he knows that it's going to bleed, but he keeps on chewing and chewing and chewing the cactus. Exactly like the beautiful, enticing thing the monkey sees and hears and eventually the Madari tries to capture him for his training in a circus or wherever. He gets him, and then he puts his head, and he cannot take it out. And and any of these irregulations in our life is a trap. And that's the reason why, in order to stay conscious, in order to have a higher taste, in order to have a sense full of loving devotional service in our mind, we should shun these entrapments which are there. Like, you'll have a war, and finally, after the war, when uh, the winning side tries to celebrate, these the other parties have trapped minds, and they all get killed. So this is where we have to recognize that if you want to stay conscious, if you want to seek happiness in the right way, we have to get rid of the entrapments which are there in our life, where the bodily consciousness comes and we get attracted and we fall in line. Nowadays, there is a opioid crisis which is happening all the time in youths who are who are basically straight from the mainstream. And this is a big crisis. People, in order to address pain, are taking resort to indirect drugs, which is essentially entrapment in their ability. So any form of happiness which is like a painkiller, or which is more like a thing which gives us the aha moment in our life, it gives happiness, amrutapamam, happiness in the beginning, but at the end, it is all poisonous. Pariname visamiva. We have to recognize that there's a trap there for all of us, and we should stay away from that entrapment in our life. As long as we have detected that, we're staying conscious. And that's why our acharyas have laid out some of the four traps, which are nothing but the regulatory principles we all should follow. And more and more you follow, you realize how what kind of decision making. Initially, a person eating non-vegetarian, giving up. The first question he is going to ask you is, how will he get protein? And so on and so forth. There is protein in paneer and so many other, pulses and so many other places. But once we stay away from it, initially it may not appear all that pleasant, but finally it is very pleasing to our consciousness, very pleasing to our stomach. It's very, very pleasing. So anything which starts with so much of happiness eventually leads to issues which Krishna characterizes as pariname with some evil. So if in our life we're getting a aha moment, and then our happiness is dwindling, we should realize that this happiness is the mode of passion, and we should find a way to address it and control it and check and balance it. So as we end this week and we are into the weekend, there are a lot of get-togethers which are happening right now. People are into movies or potluck parties or wherever. But you choose to hear Krishna Katha or discuss Krishna Katha, which is essentially at a much higher taste, as to it's a yardstick wherein you can recognize what is good and what is not, and it will tread your path in what to do and what not to do. So whenever, just to summarize before I end, anything as in 37, Krishna mentioned so beautifully the ability that happiness in the mode of goodness, it starts with poison but turns into nectar, like tat agre visamiva pariname amrutapamam, it is, which is 37, which is just opposite. How beautifully Krishna is when yat tat agre amrutapamam pariname visamiva. So quite a lot of these words are common, but Krishna has just placed it oppositely, so that we should recognize that anything which has difficulty in the beginning, like getting up in the morning chanting, is difficult, but finally once you get a taste for it. You wake up in the morning beautifully, but anything wherein you end up sleeping late, you're getting a lot of enjoyment under the warmth of the comforter, but finally you realize that you have totally messed up with your habit and pariname, and then in order to undo it, you have to do so many things to get it back. So, a very beautiful verse for all of us to ponder as to how anything which gives us easy happiness in the beginning and eventually it is having a dwindling test on our life. You should recognize that it is purely at a body platform that we have recognized that happiness, and we should shun that and go back to a mode of goodness. And our intent is to transcend mode of goodness to Suddha Sattva so that we are always in a pure platform in terms of how we should intake Krishna consciousness in our life and apply, have shun envy, always be on the side of the truth, and so on and so forth. But these are the traits which will get us back into the right path in our lives, and hopefully it will strengthen our determination to stay and focused in Krishna consciousness. So, with that, I'd like to end here. Thank you so much for your kind attention. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts, your meditations, your reflections on this verse 18.38. Please share so that we can learn from you. Any question or comments? Sorry, my internet went away for a second when we were reading the translation, but I thought I was audible in the last 25 minutes. Any comments, reflections, Prabhu? Mataji?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Vandanat, Pranam.
Prabhuji, I have a question on the verse 18.38.
Mhm.
So is it like same with everything, like whatever we do? Like sometimes we may feel uh, like whenever we contact with any of the objects or when new things that we are going to do, we feel passion on that. For example, I'm a researcher. So if I'm doing some like research, I may feel passionate on that. But at the end, I may get bored, and if I got results, will it still work as a poison? But at the same time, this is my passion to work as a researcher. I'm keeping Krishna in the center. So will the nature of passion will be the same like that as mentioned in the verses, or will it be different?
Yeah, very nice question, Prabhu. Prabhu, you are a researcher. In order to find a problem, you have to have ample passion, and then eventually you dwell on experiments and theories to get to the outcome. But if you have to think that may not be the beginning of your activity, you have toiled hard to get to that stage of passion. So you should think that the time when you got your fundamentals right, the time when you toiled hard to recognize and become an expert in the subject matter, those were the times. In terms of being passionate about your work to identify a problem and resolve it, is definitely not the beginning in terms of tad agre, right? Amrutapamam, you're passionate, but that passion is after years of hard work, in years of toiling hard, burning midnight oil, and going through various research papers and presenting in various different conferences. So you have come this far to recognize. Many people will not have the passion you have because you have understood the internals of the problem you're trying to solve. And that ability is not the beginning. You are now in the midpoint, actually. Still, you are toiling. Passion in this context is Vishayandriya Samyoga, where your body or your object of the senses, your five senses is getting in contact. Here you are not really enjoying the senses, you are basically toiling hard. So your start in terms of enthusiastic passion, you should not think of it as a vishayandriya samyoga, as Krishna is saying in the first line. You are actually the opposite of that, in the sense that you are not worried about your bodily pleasures. You're studying or writing programs. You're learning a new language to model your problem in chemical engineering or whatever you're doing. So you're basically just opposite of Vishayandriya Samyoga. But however, think about a situation where at the time of uh, having expert information about the subject, you enjoy it by going to movies, or spending time outside with your friends, where you basically, then you would not have come this far. So that's how I would take it, Prabhu, because you have invested a significant amount of time. So your agre is actually not amrutapamam. It was the toiling you had done, and that's why you come to this stage. So be passionate about your work. Keep Krishna in the center, and you will achieve success as long as you are not um, you know disturbing anybody else. You're constantly getting into the subject matter. You should not think uh, that mode of passion is very much with visayandriya samyoga. I mean, where you're basically using your body for sense gratification, and you're not doing that, so you're fine in that sense. Is that okay, bro?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you for giving me the clarifications. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Very welcome, Prabhu. Any other comments? Very nice thoughts, Prabhu. Bhakti Ratnagar Prabhu, Niranjan Prabhu, Pratap Prabhu, Santa Mataji. Any thoughts?
Think silent Prabhuji because little bit of I have cough from the
Mhm.
last more than 1 month for that acid reflux cough. So
Mm.
going through the allergies actually.
Okay, okay. Okay, take a lot of fluid, Prabhu. Hope you feel better. Warm fluid.
Yeah, yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu. Bhakti Ratnagar Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Then thank you for the nice explanation, Prabhuji. Yeah. Um, Point, Prabhuji, here is like in the last verse, Krishna told that um, it should uh, it should take us to the path of self-realization, right? The whatever the actions which we are doing, which may be poison in the beginning and amrit in the end, but the underlying principle is it should awake to self-realization. So similarly here, Prabhuji, the underlying part, which as you explained, Prabhuji, is the sense objects and sense. So we should not be associated with those. Means the whatever is the result, our we should not be attached to them, Prabhuji. That is what I when you are explaining, I thought that was flowing through my mind that uh, this um, it is initially we feel because we are trying to uh, con, condition ourselves as our body, Prabhuji, right? We are in the bodily consciousness. That's why we get this. Oh, it's very, as Prabhupada has explained, that initially when a girl and a boy meets, so we are at the bodily level. We are not at the spiritual level, right, Prabhuji? That's why. So, oh, if we are not at the uh, spiritual level, Prabhuji, this mm, uh, the condition is not valid here, Prabhuji. That's what I am trying to see. We say, right, necessary and sufficient conditions, we say. So
Mm-hmm.
here the necessary and the sufficient condition is because we are trying to relate ourselves to the body, Prabhuji.
Mm.
That is the main point which
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So, a person in the mode of goodness, 18.37, last verse, is more concerned about spiritual awakening.
exactly.
He is not considered considering so much about the body. Srila Prabhupada, when he was coming in Jaladuta, he was not considered about body, double heart attacks. He came in a freight ship, not even a real uh, passenger airship. So, but a person in the mode of passion or in the mode of passion, rajasic, in this verse is more bodily conscious. That's a distinction actually. And
Exactly.
in that, even in those areas, even if spiritual awakening is concerned, if in spiritual awakening also there are acharyas to spiritually awaken, they spend time with lot of pompous, uh, you know, manuals, publications, not a lot of hardship. But Srila Prabhupada, to publish book to back to Godhead in 50s, in Jhansi and so many other places, went through a lot of hardship. So it basically strengthened him to really come up. So that spiritual awakening, the Vish and Amrit angle applies there also, but in a spiritual awakening level. But in a this verse, it is purely at the body or senses, which the person is indulging in, trying to indulge, and and uh, s- and that's how we should take it. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, I have a question. It is not related to what based on today's class. So, what is the significance of Vaishnavis with respect to Kumbh Mela? Because I see means when I look at Kumbh Mela, so a lot of Saivite, devotees they throng to Kumbh Mela for this one. But how or if any significance it has in Vaishnava philosophy or in Krishna consciousness?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much for bringing this topic about Kumbh Mela. So, Prabhu, in Kumbh Mela happens in few years, and this is a very special Kumbh Mela because it's happening. This special Mahakumbh Mela is happening after a long time. So the stars have aligned. The uh, and and we also have dipping in Ganges. If you remember, Prabhu, Bhakti Rasamrit Maharaj uh, have mentioned many times about the importance of Ganga Sagar Mela. But Ganga Sagar is in Ganges, but to your point, dipping in a very auspicious, pious river, and in this case Prayag, which is the confluence of Ganga, Jamuna, Saraswati, is very important. However, Prabhu, Vaishnavas do not consider the Shaivites as someone who is opposite or who is against. They're very friendly because we think Vaishnavanam Yatha Sambud, Shiva is the topmost Vaishnava. So, in that sense, there is no deterrent or there is no opposition if you participate in Kumbh Mela. Actually, our ISKCON, Gaurang Prabhu and his cooking crew is distributing uh, thousands of prasadam every day in Kumbh Mela right now. So we are not opposed to it, Prabhu, if I can weigh in. But we also have similar things. Yes, but as uh, the Kumbh Mela is a confluence of three rivers, there is definitely a congregation of devotees from all sides, including a lot of Shaivites take place. Shaivites joins that, and we have no qualms or no issues in that sense, Prabhu. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Yes.
Yeah. So, so we have see the the process of consciousness or through the process of parampara is very much driven by acharyas. So Ramanujacharya's acharya mentioned something. He went to a hilltop and he uttered that mantra and he preached what his guru told to everybody. And then he preached and his followers preached. Likewise, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in the lineage. He preached. Then in his lineage, Srila Prabhupada came and he preached. So we follow a process, and 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 all these processes has a merit, because if we follow too many different processes, we will become confused and we start comparing. So uh, in our parampara, there has been a very significant importance to so many such important festivals. And Ganga Sagar Mela happens to be one. Makar Sankranti is the appearance of Ganga Devi, where Ganga emerged uh, on the day of Makar Sankranti. So, and we have so many other festivals coming up. You, you may be wondering why we are not participating that uh, involved way in Kumbh Mela. Uh, it is precisely in my mind because our acharyas have not emphasized it to the degree it is popularized outside. But that doesn't. So that's why we are following our acharyas in that context. So there is, but our acharyas have never had any issues with people attending Kumbh Mela, because there is an element of purity because of the confluence of three rivers, Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, and that has its own benefit, Prabhu.
Got it, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, reflections? Okay, if there is no other questions and comments, we'll convene next Friday at 8 p.m. But this attributes Krishna is emphasizing should give us a lot of impetus how not to be so much conscious about body oriented, pleasure seeking attitude, because they are very temporary and it is external in nature. They are not really and internal. So please take to these uh, subject matter very seriously in our lives, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is trying to go step by step in explaining the importance of these very powerful verses, how to seek happiness. This happiness is a thing, everybody is seeking happiness in their own ways. Somebody tries to go the body aspect, happiness, massaging, this, that. The other person is trying to serve and gain happiness by serving. So think about a person who is constantly going to a masseur and getting. So he's getting happiness. There's nothing right or wrong, but look at the 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 height or the level of happiness when somebody is deriving pleasure by serving others. So that is something we have to think about as to why Krishna is saying all these things, why we should not restrict ourselves to bodily happiness, and why the 18.37 last verse is emphasizing the importance of spiritual awakening by starting in a difficult path and then growing in our ability. And you think about this verse where it starts very good but eventually leads to sadness, is the golden deer which Mother Sita chastised Lakshman to go and get, uh, and uh, and that deer turned out to be a demon, Marichi. So we have to what all that glitters is not gold. So we should recognize that Dhruva Maharaj, when he got the entire Dhruva Loka, a planetary system, another Earth-like thing, he said, "I don't need this. I just need the lotus feet of you." So you're saying I was going after this cracks of glasses, but what I found is 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 diamonds. I was going after glass pieces, but I found. So sometimes what we are searching for is not what we deserve. We deserve much more than that. But by not associating, by not having the right knowledge, we seek very low end and we are very happy with the bodily thing. But that is something we should awaken ourselves through these verses and search for a higher taste with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's emphasis to all of us is to generate a higher taste. And once we have a higher taste, all these regulations will come in very normally to us. It will be part of the system and we'll seek the higher taste. So it's all about higher taste. What is happiness at a higher taste? It's all about the spiritual awakening which Prabhu spoke about, which was the last verse, not the bodily one, which is emphasized here. So today is a verse which tells you what we should not end up doing. And last verse is something what we should all yearn for. And next verse is going to be happiness in the mode of ignorance. So it will be a very interesting subject matter. So please join 8 a.m., 8 p.m. next Friday. And with that, I'd like to end here by offering prayers at the lotus feet of Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpataruvascha kripa sindhu vaevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
namaha
Namo.
वैष्णव वृंद की जय
Jai.
ग्रंथराज भगवद गीता की जय
Jai.
शिला प्रभुपाद की जय
Jai.
Jai.
गौर गौरांग
Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Bol.